everybody. How's it? Johnny Noble at your service. How's everybody doing tonight? Oh, come on. How's everybody doing tonight? Okay, that's more like it. You know, it's wonderful to be here with you on a night like this. These islands, am I right? You know, there's magic in the air. It's true. It's always been there. It's everywhere you look. It's a land of rhythms. It's the pulse of the people. It's in the hissing of the lava, the howling of the trade winds, and the ebb and flow of the tides. You see, there's a silver moon, a symphony of stars. There's a hula tune and the hum of soft guitars. There's a trade wind sighing in the heavens, singing me a song of old Hawaii, singing me a song of old Hawaii. Oh, well, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I will take it where I can get it. Now, I first wrote that little ditty back in 1938. It's called A Song of Old Hawaii, and it's one of my favorites. That magic I was talking about? Music! Our ancient ancestors made music. The missionaries made music. Even little Johnny Noble, growing up back in 1890 on Robello Lane in Palama, was making music, usually with instruments he dug out of the garbage. I couldn't get enough of it. And when I was old enough, I learned to write it down so I could share it with all of you. I guess it all really started when I was 11 years old. I decided to make some extra money after school, so I got a job selling papers. Now, it was awfully dull, standing on that street corner day after day, so I'd whistle to pass the time. It turns out, I was a pretty darn good whistler. So good, in fact, that people started requesting a song to go with their paper. So I'd whistle a little tune for them, and they'd pay me double. Oh, my employers appreciated this boom in business, and before I knew it, I was #1 newsboy for the Evening Bulletin. I amassed quite the fan club. I remember standing up on the steps of Woods and Sheldon's with a huge crowd spilling onto the sidewalk and into the street, all nodding their heads and swaying to the lilting tempo until I'd finish with a flourish of trills, just like a bird. Then the audience would burst into applause and start shouting out requests. Hey, Johnny, don't stop now. Let's have one more, eh? Oh, do sweet Lele Hua, would you? Get out of the damn street! I didn't hear any of it, because I was too busy crawling around on my hands and knees collecting all the nickels and dimes that rained down from the hands of the crowd. My music career began when a fellow by the name of Ernest Ka'ai came to one of those whistling concerts. Now, I didn't know this fellow from Adam, but it turns out he was Honolulu's foremost ukulele player and the music director for some of the biggest hotels on the island. When he asked me, little Johnny Noble, if I wanted to tour with his band and do whistling solos. Yes, sir, yes I do. So I spent the next few years traveling all over the islands and whistling up a storm. I learned quite a bit about instruments in that band, and I got pretty good on the drums. Now, I wasn't smashing them to pieces anyway. When I graduated from school, it was time for me to get to work. So, I spent my days at my job for the Mutual Telephone Company, and my evenings picking up music gigs wherever I could find them. I accompanied vaudeville shows, I drummed the sound effects for silent pictures. I even made it into some pretty swanky houses. Well, I did. My career really got moving when I landed a gig drumming at the Bijou, one of the biggest and most popular theaters in Honolulu. I was playing with real musicians. These guys were great, don't get me wrong, but they were a little conservative for my taste. You see, at the time, the mainland was Jazz City, with Tin Pan Alley in New York at its heart. Oh, I love jazz. Oh, I couldn't get enough of it. And the more I listened to it, the more I realized it had an awful lot in common with Hawaiian music. Both were natural and spontaneous, both were real personal, and both had a certain haunting, nostalgic quality. They went together like peanut butter and jam. So around this time, Sonny Cunha, one of my best musician friends, big as a house, this fella, decided that he was going to combine the lilting Hawaiian sound we all knew and loved with that dancing ragtime rhythm and a touch of blues. And he called his new style hapa haole, or American Hawaiian. Oh, the first time I heard Honolulu Hula Girl, I was over the moon. So Sonny and me got right to work, making a little dance band of our own, with me on the drums and the xylophone and Sonny on the piano. Heck, I'd never heard that in Hawaiian music before. And we were a hit! For the most part, anyway. Our loudest critic was this fellow by the name of Frederick William Kahapula Beckley Jr. Try saying that 5 times fast. Now, old Freddie thought that our new style was corrupting the plaintive, harmonious sound of the Hawaiians. Heck, nobody loved our new style more than the Hawaiians. But old Freddie wasn't all wet. He was a fine musician himself, and he wrote this swell opera called Pele and Lohia, about the volcano goddess flinging some poor sap into the crater of a volcano. And he asked me to music direct it. I guess we agreed to disagree, and we respected one another's talent. Now, you might have heard of old Freddie. He's the son of a certain Mrs. Emma Beckley, perhaps more recently introduced to you as Mrs. Emma Nakawina. So Sonny and me went on playing in our dance band for a few more years until I got the opportunity of a lifetime. You ever hear of the Moana Hotel? Yes, if you say no, you're lying. She's the oldest hotel on the Waikiki Strip, first built back in 1901. Now, she's got this swell lanai that's built around the sturdiest banyan tree you ever saw in your life. Look at that, ladies and gentlemen. Now, 3 nights a week, a band led by Dan Pokipala would play on this lanai. And all the swanky young tourists and socialites would show up to dance the night away. And sometimes I'd stop in and tickle the skins for them. Now, this one night, Dan comes up to me looking awful worn out, and he says, "Johnny, I think it's time for me to throw in the towel. I want you to be the new band leader here at the Moana." I wasn't going to turn him down. So I got right to work with the band, speeding up tempos. Speedier. Yes! And giving everything that good old jazz swing. We were the talk of the islands, and those Moana floor flushers went wild for it. One of my favorite things to do was watch the crowds after each number to see how they reacted. It occurred to me that they loved the hula so much And they must be awful blue when they left. That gave me an idea. So, in 1920, Sonny and me collaborated on a song, Hula Blues. We started playing it at the Moana, and it was an instant hit. Even royalty couldn't get enough of it. So, that summer, the Prince of Wales, Edward VIII, heir to the British throne, arrived in the islands on some big old tour of the world. And I guess he wanted a taste of the islands, so he took a room at the Moana for a couple nights. That first evening, after supper, he comes out onto the lanai to hear the band play. Now, all the men, women, and kids in this joint are pushing and shoving, all trying to get a glimpse of this fancy-pants Brit. This was our shot. So I lean over to the boys and I say, Hula Blues. So the band kicks up, and I look over. Sure enough, the prince is tapping his foot. And before I know it, he's up on his feet, dancing with some dame. Heck, I never heard a band play so good in my whole life. I swear, the applause was so loud the ground shook. So afterwards, I was congratulating the boys when I hear somebody clear his throat behind me. The boys are all staring. He's right behind me, isn't he? So I turn, and sure enough, there's the prince, and he looks at me, and he says, "What was the name of that number you just played?" And I say, it was called, Hula Blues, Your Honor, Your Highness, Your Prince of Walesliness. Oh, I was nervous. And he says, "Well, I rather liked it. I was wondering if you'd play it again later in the evening." You bet, Your Highness. And by God, we played it again. I played for some important people in my day, let me tell you, but nothing sticks in my mind quite like that night. The Banyan Court became a symbol for all the lovely things Hawaii stood for. Gowns of lace and brocade swept across the floor. Diamonds glittered, and the scent of gardenia leis filled the air. It was all a very elegant affair. Until a gay hapa haole tune would kick up, and the audience would really cut loose. "Oh, gee, Johnny," they'd say, "your music just makes my feet tickle. I couldn't get off the floor, even if I tried." I don't know. I think I see that same gleam in your eyes tonight. What do you say, folks? Are we a dancing crowd? Come on, up on your feet. Oh, 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 there's love in Hula Blues. Tell me, have you ever heard this Hula Blues? You can't imagine what you're feeling so blue about. You simply glide and take a slide, and you wanna shout. You wiggle, you giggle, you wiggle to the Hula Blues. You wiggle, you giggle, you wiggle to the Hula Blues. Thank you. Now every night at the Moana, and later the Royal Hawaiian Hotel, was just like that. Like New Year's Eve. Around this time, people started asking me, "Johnny," they'd say, "what's the secret to this whole mess of success you've been having?" Well, I was in love. I first met Emily Kuali'i Dunn at Christmas time, 1920. She was sweet, beautiful, and wouldn't give me the time of day. But I was persistent, and I knew the moment I saw that dame that I was going to marry her. So I started calling on her as often as I could in the strange hours my work schedule would allow, till her mother got a little hot under the collar. "You two can't go on like this," she'd shout. And last night, he backed into the garbage cans and woke up half the neighborhood. This has got to stop. She was right. It had to stop. So the next time I called on her, I had a ring in my pocket. I'd only known her for 6 months. Well, she said yes. A couple years later, on September 13th, 1922, Emily gave birth to Elizabeth Emily. To us, she was the 8th wonder of the world. Now, our little Elizabeth was independent, to say the least. I remember this one day she comes home from school, still just a little slip of a thing, sits us down and says, "Ma, Pop, I think I'd like for you to call me Demetra from now on." So we look at each other. And we say, "Whatever floats your boat, kid." And from that day forth, she was Dee Dee. We were so proud. Now, Dee Dee wasn't the only exciting thing to arrive in the islands in 1922. Oh, no. It also saw the arrival of radio. I remember pulling up at KGU Studios on South King Street with the Moana Band in tow, and for the first time, live Hawaiian music went out on the airwaves from the islands. Radio opened up all sorts of new opportunities for us. For example, a few years later, in 1927, I got to work with a little group called the Brunswick Commission, creating Hawaii's first record label. So I started looking for all the talent I knew and gathering them together, the youngsters and the geezers. Let's see, Ray Kinney, Lena Machado, Sonny. And we recorded 100 of the best Hawaiian songs you ever heard. Heck, with all this new technology, it was almost too easy to write a hit. In the next few years, I've published King Kamehameha, I Want to Learn to Speak Hawaiian, and my biggest hit, Hawaiian War Chant. Here's a little ditty I helped write back in 1933. Sing along if you know it, and I bet you do. It won't be long till my ship will be sailing back to Kona, a grand old place that's always fair to see. Oh, telling me I'm just a little Hawaiian and a homesick island boy. I wanna go back to my fish and poi. I wanna go back, to my little grass shack in Kealakekua, Hawaii, where the humu nuku nuku apua go swimming by. All right, one more time, let's see some fish. Where the humu nuku nuku apua go swimming by. Oh, my little girl, thank you. It's one of my favorites. And it sold like hotcakes. You wouldn't believe it. Served as a symbol of life in the islands to everyone on the mainland. Now, I thought I'd seen everything the business had to throw at me till April 23rd, 1938. City of Honolulu declared it Johnny Noble Day in honor of the more than 300 songs I'd written for him. There were parties and parades and this big concert in my honor. They even got the old Moana band back together. Now, partway through this concert, they asked me to get up on stage and whistle. Now, I hadn't done much whistling for a while, but I agreed, so I get up there, and I've barely whistled 3 notes when I'm joined by a chorus of birds. Hundreds of them. Real ones. Yeah. That was a special day. So the next few years I went on writing and publishing like I did until I started feeling real tired in a way that I never had before. One night, Emily and me went to see a friend of mine and his band play. Oh, they were really hopping that night. I recognized every tune as one that I had written, and they kept looking back over their shoulders after each one with a wry little smile. It was a heck of a night. Now, on our way out, I suddenly grabbed hold of Emily's arm and I said, "Honey dear, don't go so fast. I need to rest." So she helped me into the back seat of the car and we started home. Now, as we drove, I watched as the lights of the city I had grown up in and grown old in passed us by. I watched my lovely wife's eyes in the rearview mirror, and then I closed mine for a rest. I never opened them. Music is everywhere to the born musician. I heard it in the wind. I heard it driving in my car. I heard it resting at our beach home, Haole, the house of music. I'd be walking along, minding my own business, when suddenly a melody would pop into my head, and I'd rush home and jump at my piano, start to work. Now, Emily, bless her heart, wouldn't disturb me until I leapt up from my bench and shouted, "Baby, I got it! It's done, and it's good." Sometimes she'd agree. Most of the time, she'd make it better. To me, success was never about fame or fortune or having a day named after me. It was about providing for my Emily and my Demetra while doing the things that I loved. Boy, did I love what I did. Well, it's getting to be about that time, folks, but how about one more for the road? Sing along if you know it. Aloha, aloha, ike ona, ona no, ikalipo. One fond embrace, a until we meet again, until we meet again. Aloha oi. Good night, folks.